Hey y'all, it's Nim or Nimacree if you're feeling professional, and welcome to the YouTube video. Now, I know it's been a while since I've done a proper YouTube video. That's because I had a 6 credit hour Spanish class that I just finished, took the final exam, and got a 94%. So, without further ado, let's do some reaction content to the devs revealing the World of Warcraft War Within Alpha. There will be more videos coming, including some big lore/philosophy mix videos that we're working on, but for now, this is quick, this is fun, and more importantly, it's hype building, so let's enjoy some of our favorite game. And if you like what I do, go on and click subscribe, and other things that are down in the description of the video. Let's get started.
Hey everyone, welcome to WoWcast. Today we're going to talk about The War Within, which alpha starts soon. I have 2 special guests with me today. Please introduce yourselves.
Hi, I'm Ian, Game Director on WoW.
I'm Tina, Associate Art Director on WoW.
All right, so Ian looks a lot better than I think he has in a number of years. He looks thinner and happier. And of course, the art director. I love the art team at Blizzard. You guys have done no wrong by me ever. I love what you do, so congratulations on being amazing and carrying certain parts of the game. No notes. I have no notes, but I'm not an artist, so I don't think I can criticize anything there.
Thank you guys so much for joining me today. Before we talk about alpha, what can you summarize about The War Within, Ian?
Well, so The War Within, I mean, of course, it is the 10th expansion to well-known video game World of Warcraft. But even, I think, more special to us, it's the beginning of the World Soul Saga. It's the beginning of probably the most ambitious story we've ever tried to tell in WoW.
So let's rewind back a little bit. If we remember BlizzCon 2023, right? The idea was they revealed the World Soul Saga, this grand narrative that's in 3 parts, and each part is going to make sense, be enjoyable, and ultimately tie into the next. Now, they say that's the most ambitious story they've ever tried to tell, and I would tend to agree with them, because generally, a lot of the WoW stuff happens on a patch-by-patch cycle, and while there's somewhat of a narrative, there are certain little offshoots and things that don't really matter. So you have narratives in the zone, and you have a ongoing expansion narrative, and then that changes patch to patch. Now, the fact of the matter here is that if they're trying to make something both enjoyable and coherent, then that's going to require a lot of planning. And there have been people on the internet who have accused World of Warcraft of not having the most talented writing staff. Now, I'm not going to comment on that per se. I will say, however, that you can always try to do something more ambitious, and I'm here for trying new things. It's one of the reasons why, even though I didn't like Plunderstorm at all, I thought it was great that they were trying something new, because that's a cool idea. Hey, it's something new. You tried something. You kept it from data miners. You dropped it. Yeah, there were some balancing problems, but that happens. So, awesome. Let's continue.
So as all expansions do, it kicks off with a journey to a new place. But really, this is going to be beginning to set the stage and establish the stakes for a conflict that threatens not just ourselves and our families and those we hold dear, but the very world that we call home, the very world beneath our feet that's been home to all of our adventures.
I want to draw attention to the fact that he said this is going to threaten our home. We've already had problems with our home. Insert sword meme here. Boop. So now that we've inserted the sword meme, I want you to understand that we've had those problems, but we can put it in context, right? Arthas, terrible guy to have, ready to kill the world, ready to turn everybody into the undead, ultimately a cataclysm. Funny enough, the next expansion, Cataclysm, Deathwing rises and changes the face of the world. Both of those were civilization and life-ending threats, but really weren't threats to the planet themselves. The planet still continues. Like, remember the End Time dungeon, there's Deathwing impaled upon the spire of Dragonflight, but the world is still existing. Granted, it's in a form of chaos. Even the Primalists didn't want to destroy the world. They wanted to remake the world in their idea of chaos, but the world itself still existed. So this is a new level of threat.
And if we don't win this one, nothing else matters.
So this character has been everywhere for The War Within. Xel'lotath. She's purple. She's amazing. Can you tell us more about her?
Xel'lotath. So I like the idea of new villains being raised up, because at this point we've already closed the book on basically all of them. So new villains means new story, means new concept, means new writing, means new reasons for us to go to areas to discover new things and stop plots. Ultimately, it moves the story forward. And what is important is that not only it moves the story forward in a nice, coherent manner, but it also has to be fun.
Yeah, Xal'atath is, one of our key villains of the World Soul Saga. The expansion is, part of it is this journey, delving deeper, find Xal'atath and her allies. And the inspiration for her design from an art side was really based on the priest artifact weapon that she had been trapped in for so long. So if you look at her armor, like all the motifs of, her belt, her shoulders, really take inspiration from.
I didn't play a priest in Legion, really. So I don't know much about Xal'atath other than the fact that it was a priest weapon, and then you used it in battle for Azeroth, and it helped you against N'Zoth. And that's really cool. And the fact that now this entity that was trapped is now free, that's awesome. Like, yay art team, yay story. I need to know how that happened. And what I wanted it to happen is I want to know about it in-game. I have the ability to read books outside of the game. Sure, I can do that. But if you hide all of the filler plot in books, most people aren't going to know. They're going to turn to lore YouTubers, and if you're interested in lore, please let me know in the comments below. We'll see what we can do about that. But I want the game to tell me at least the big story beats that make the narrative make sense. Because if you don't do that, there's no way that a third, 3 expansions are going to land correctly.
That design, even the runes on her.
I'll be honest with you, that's really cool eyes. I really like those eyes. That definitely gives this inhuman, or I guess in elven, perspective and appearance. Because even though she looks somewhat like a night elf, you can tell that there's something different. Night elf eyes don't look like that.
Her cheeks, those are a homage to N'Zoth, who freed her from the dagger.
Knifeu.
Yeah, so if later on in War Within you find yourself, wiping to a raid somewhere, just blame the Shadow Priests for not just putting the knife down,
Yeah,
walk away from the talking dagger, and we wouldn't be here.
So now I have to understand that Shadow Priests, at least for the first expansion, do have the blame role confirmed. Okay, so keep that in mind. Now, what would be really, really funny is if the mechanics team buffs Shadow Priests crazily in response to this. As even if it's just a joke for like a couple of like a patch where they're like, oh yeah, by the way, Shadow Priest, your execute can now be used at 50% health. Like, huh? What do you know? Shadow word death. I can use that at 50%. Yeah, your mind flay. Also, that would be funny. I like that. I want them to play. It's one of the reasons why I like Dragonflight's writing a little bit. Not as so much as an overall narrative, because it was whatever. It's fine. But some of the individual quests and characters. Like Tyvan's storyline, the Brights storyline. It made the world feel more lived in and less rigid. It made it. It's the suspension of disbelief, right? So it's the Pokemon problem, right? When you watch Pokemon, they always reference everything as a solution to Pokemon. The entire culture is based around Pokemon, and that doesn't really make sense because there would be things that could be done without that. By you introducing the Pokemon into the equation that you need to solve, you're actually making it more complex. You don't need Squirtle to shoot water gun to put out a fire when you have fire trucks that carry water. It's nice to have them, but you don't absolutely need to have that. Same thing here, is that it's nice that you have all of these comfortable and known fantasy tropes, but subverting the narrative a little bit is what someone would do in real life. We are not actors. We don't follow a script. So some things are going to be outside the norm, and that's okay. Again, Tyvan, with Tyvan's story, is probably the greatest example of that in Dragonflight.
Oh my
And
gosh.
yet,
Are there any other familiar faces that we can recognize?
Yeah, some of the key heroes of our story are Illyria and Anduin. So these two, they're running a bit, right, from some of the wounds of their past.
Anduin is struggling with PTSD. Anduin is struggling with PTSD. We saw that in the reveal trailer. We know that he's struggling with PTSD, and I would love some quest to help his mental state because he's grappling with the idea of a destiny that was put upon him, failure at that, and the fact that eventually he did give in a little bit to the jailer in order to make the pain stop, and that felt good. And there's this transference of ideas where he's like, oh yeah, this feels good, and maybe because I'm a bad person. No, Anduin. It feels good because somebody stopped torturing you, and you don't want that to happen again. There's a reason why the military has training to resist torture, and it's not to be torture-proof, it's to resist torture. And everybody breaks. Everybody breaks. I can only hope that the prince here actually gets handled with care and maturity that cinematic had, because I remember him waving that sword, and pointing it at Thrall, and just the animators did an amazing job.
But in the end, they're going to find hope and redemption. So, Illyria, we've seen her new design.
Oh, that's a really nice design. I like that. I really like that design. Like, that's cool. I'm not an aesthetics guy generally, because I just play for stats and power and things. We could have blocks, but I like that design. The black and silver there, light and dark.
Reflects the duality of her character. And Anduin, we saw him in our cinematic, and he just
even the base model has that 1,000-yard stare. You can tell there's not mirth in this face, right? Still wearing his armor, but there's no joy there.
Looks, a little more haggard. He's been through a lot lately.
He grows beard.
Yeah,
He's working on it.
Yeah, I mean, the name The War Within is one that has a couple of layers to it, right? Obviously, we're literally delving beneath the surface of Azeroth and going to be battling within our world. But this is also a story that involves a lot of inner turmoil and inner conflict.
And for the love of God, please play that out. Please play out the inner turmoil and conflict, right? Illyria has to deal with the void powers. Anduin has to deal with PTSD. Thrall may be in a position of leadership again. And even though there's a war council for the Horde, Thrall's still around. People are going to be like, hey, Thrall, I remember when you were in charge. Do you want to maybe help out with something? And then, of course, you've got Magni with the speakers. Azeroth as a character herself. There's going to be a lot going on, and if it's just surface level, then you're really missing out on a great bit of storytelling. So I want to draw attention to WoW's biggest competitor, Final Fantasy XIV. The reason why the Hildebrand quests are so good is because they're extremely well written and they're taken seriously. Not in the sense that Hildebrand is not a amazing amount of just slapstick humor, but it's played seriously. They didn't just write it off as cheap jokes. They went with the theme entirely through to give fulfilling plots and ultimately let the most glorious Gentleman of Light succeed. So that's the thing there, is the inner turmoil, inner motivations. Expressing that on screen and through quests are going to make people have a connection to these characters in their new roles that you fashioned for them. And I hope that happens.
Anduin is probably the most torn of any of our cast of heroes, given what he went through in the Shadowlands. And his journey into the darkness as he seeks to rediscover his own light is a big part of the narrative arc.
And with The War Within, there's new zones. Can we talk about what our new zones are going to be?
The continent as a whole that begins on the surface and extends beneath the earth, right, we're calling Khazalgar. This is an ancient home to the Earthen. It's actually just off the west coast of Pandaria, about between Pandaria and Kalimdor.
All right, I like the idea. It's another island. It makes sense. We discover new things. We get in that way. You don't have to worry about modifying old assets or making things make sense. Or like, Earthen. I guess they've been here the entire time. We just never noticed them. Like that's good again for suspension of disbelief. Where because if every day I saw a giant rock guy walk across the street, originally I'd be shocked. And then eventually I'd be like, oh, okay, well, that's something. And then eventually I wouldn't notice it at all. But if someone asked me, hey, is the rock guy there? Yeah, he's around. As opposed to somebody who just saw that, like, well, where did that go? I like that idea as opposed to the Azerite that just popped up after Legion, right? Azerite, and that made sense because Azeroth was wounded. You collect the Azerite, you try to heal a wound. I get that. And then Magni would be like, the wounds champion.
Just a couple hundred nautical miles away from a certain sword that's sticking out of the southern end of Kalimdor. But yes, home to 4 zones with amazing, varied settings.
Yeah, so our first zone, the Isle of Dorn, this is basically, you'll find an isolated group of Earthen there. And so they have their awesome city, Dorn.
That reminds me very much of the Twilight Highlands and the Wildhammers. I really like this type of aesthetic. I think it's very good. And if that was the music that they're going to use, it's very soothing.
Nogal, which we're very excited for players to check out. That'll be the hub in the end. The second zone is the Ringing Deeps. So, the evocative of like mine picks, industry. And so this is the heart of earthen industry. But it's not all just, lava and fire. It's mixed with these beautiful caverns, cenotes with light and water coming in, creating these, lush spaces for the players.
Oh, that looks lovely. That's like an expansion of the Wailing Caverns. That's absolutely lovely. Look at that. The fact that you can go from an industrial area to like a spring and have natural foliage growing. Oh, this is going to be fantastic. And if that's the Vitreous Stone Drake, I'm going to be upset because I really want the Vitreous Stone Drake. That might be the Sandstone based on the color. I don't know my mounts as well as I used to.
To enjoy. And then we go to Howlafall. Howlafall is where we really wanted to break expectations. Right, like this one, this is Arathi, airships.
Right, underground airships, right? The first thing you'd naturally think of when you're going under the surface.
Oh, that's a beautiful concept. That is an absolutely beautiful concept. A cavern so large that you can fly an airship. Oh, that's going to take advantage of the dynamic flight. That's going to take advantage of zone size. That means you can put a lot of little cool encounters and treasures and things. Oh, yes, I'm here for that. And that big glowing thing in the center almost reminds me of the Exodar. Yes, I am here for this.
How are they going to get around? Well, airships, of course.
Of course.
And then our final zone is Ashkahet. So this is the heart of the Nerubian Empire. This is where we'll finally be able to see the Nerubians in all of their strength and glory, like with the height of their civilization.
So Anubarek and Azul Nerub were dungeons that I remember very fondly. Right, even when in retail and in classic. And I just love the Nerubian civilization. And the fact that we get more Nerubians, yes, more Nerubians, please.
I think we'll get into the details of Alpha later, but everyone's journey is going to start in the Isle of Dorn. But I really can't wait until we get to Hallowfall in our testing. And I think Tina mentioned that this crystal, it is such a striking visual element that dominates the zone. Imagine in this place deep within the earth, a radiant crystal of light, and the way, as it illuminates the surroundings, that actually plays with the environment and some of the spawns and how the world around it reacts to it. And I think when we set out to create this underground space, we knew that one of the risks was that it could feel oppressive, that people didn't want to feel the sense of claustrophobia.
I like that they're acknowledging that, because that's the thing with Zaralek Caverns. Zaralek Caverns felt as if it was, for lack of a better word, a delve. Like we're going caving into a place. This is where some species might live, but it's not friendly to the typical denizen of the surface world. Whereas Hallowfall, as they showed with the light and the foliage, with the works, they showed that people could live there, right? And not just live there and be like, oh, we've eked out a living. Like, we can survive and thrive and maintain the whole societies and grow down here. This is, yes, I like that. Again, it takes an element that is a real concern and blends it with a fantasy element to create a wonderful solution.
If you're always in caves, Hallowfall really from the outset was built to be a place where, honestly, unless you fly all the way up to check out the ceiling above you, it doesn't feel underground. It feels like you could be outdoors in some vast, welcoming area it's incredibly epic.
When we arrive to the Isle of Dorn, what's the first thing we'll see?
Well, so you're going to see something a bit different in Alpha from when the expansion goes live. There is an expansion intro experience that is not currently being tested. It's something that has some cool narrative elements that we want players to all experience together later in the year when War Within launches.
Didn't realize that was going to speed that up. My apologies. So they said that they're not testing the narrative because there's this big expansion starting teaser feature, which I think is going to be a good idea, right? It's good to keep something away from data miners because otherwise stuff will get, parsed and spoiled. I mean, heck, I'm doing a reaction video, so I understand that. But I want people to understand that just because something is not being shown in the alpha doesn't mean that it's not tested. They're doing internal testing, and of course they're going to make sure that the cinematic and the story beats play, because if they're really setting up something to be this major plot point, then they're going to try to stick it.
Launches. But players will spawn in the alpha on the Isle of Dorne, surrounded by some debris that will look pretty familiar and pretty distinctive, and really is the scars of an initial battle.
Oh, that's a fun one. I think I know what that looks like. Dalaran, right? That looks like Dalaran being destroyed. The other thing I'm going to throw out there is that it seems like they're starting off with the Legion model, where we start off with the Broken Shore, and we lost, right? We lost one of our greatest heroes and a battle, in addition to losing Tyrion Fordring. So that is something that I just want to throw out there. That looks like Dalaran, and I'm interested to see what caused this. Sadly, I won't be able to see it until the retail launch of War Within, but should be a lot of fun.
That seems like it didn't end so well. And the beginning of our journey, as with many expansions, is a bit of a mystery, a bit of an investigation of arriving in a strange land, having this threat that we face, these visions, these whispers that heroes around Azeroth have been hearing in recent months, but trying to understand the nature of the threat we face, how we're going to stop it, and our journey begins on the doorstep.
I like that. They are just chilling. They're just chilling in a pod, just relaxing. I'm with that. At that time, I like the idea of adventurers having fun downtime, because it can't be all cosmic horror, world-ending threats, and saving civilization. There's got to be some downtime. Otherwise, well, your characters wouldn't have any personality. They'd go crazy.
Of these ancient earthen people who are going to begin, helping us figure out where to go next.
They're going to become our next allied race too, right?
Ooh.
Once we earn their trust, that's for sure.
Is there any other NPCs that we're going to be?
So we have just confirmed another allied race as Earthen. That's fantastic. Hopefully it doesn't take all expansion to unlock. That's something there, but I like the idea. I can't tell if that's looks like could be a shaman, but that armor reminds me of paladin. Just the lightning effect is what gets me there for shaman, but that looks like paladin armor.
Familiar with?
Yeah, there are going to be some characters that we haven't seen in World of Warcraft in a while, but will be, part of this story. That's because of their, dwarven heritage. And, Magni, he hears the Radiant Song. He brings some of his family members along. Moira, who is leader of the Dark Iron Dwarves and heir to Ironforge. Okay. She'll be here with her son, Dagran, who is now a young adult.
Oh, that's a really cool model. Look at that. I like that model. Yeah, he's got scrolls, and he definitely looks younger than the standard dwarf. So I'm with it. I'm with it. I'm with it.
Dagran, the last time we saw him in game, he was this pretty generic-looking dwarven baby. But now, the Dark Iron heritage is starting to show more in his appearance, along with his personality. So he has a bunch of these scrolls and books, really showing that he has a very scholarly nature.
I think one of the fun aspects of just world building and narrative in WoW is we have this vast array of characters and champions and heroes and backup characters. And whenever we figure out where we're going, what the next natural location is, what the story elements are, the first question we ask is, who needs to be here? Who does it make sense to have answer this call, want to step forward?
That's a good idea. I honestly think that's a really good idea to be able to have a large stable of characters. And, okay, we have this person coming, and this person coming, and this person coming, and that other person doesn't really make sense to come. Rexar would make sense for going out into the wild. Anduin, not necessarily. Thrall speaks to elements. So do druids at some level. But, but if we had to go to the Chapel of Light, well, Terrellian is there. We have our hero and one of the greatest paladins ever, Tepartos. Tepartos volunteers. We love Tepartos. Where's Tepartos? We love Tepartos.
is when we were dealing with, the Green Dragonflight or the Emerald Dream or the like. Okay, this is time for Malfurion and Tyrande to step forward.
I'm still going to have a vent about the legendary for Yggdrasil being a two-handed strength axe. In a patch that is about druids and the Emerald Dream, strength axe. Now, I get it. Firalath and Frack want to burn everything down. I understand. That's important. It's very important. But the legendary quest was for a two-handed strength axe. Nothing to do with druids. Not at all. So, just throwing that out there.
Now that we're going to this ancestral homeland of the Earthen with this ancient connection to the dwarven legacy of Azeroth, this is a time for our dwarves to take center stage.
All right, so let's talk about the 8 new dungeons in the War Within. What are your guys' favorites or the notable ones you want to talk about?
Well, so one that's fun to talk about is actually probably the first dungeon the players are going to see in their journeys, and it's going to be tested early on in the alpha. This is the Rookery dungeon in the Isle of Dorn. The Rookery is the place where the Storm Griffins were raised and trained by the ancient Earthen over the centuries.
So far, I like the aesthetic of the Rookery. It seems very Agathir Academy, but with a dwarven paint. So, not bad. And they're going to try to incorporate things. And, of course, all dungeons designed now are designed with Mythic Plus in mind. So there's going to be routes and skips and things. And we'll have to see how that plays out. Personally, I'm curious to see where this goes.
Dwarves and griffins go hand in hand, and the Earthen have a legacy of storm riders that we got to see a little sneak peek of. If you got the War Within Heroic Edition, you might have been flying around on that guy. There's plenty more where that came from in the Isle of Dorn. And so this dungeon, of course, is not all peaceful. It's been overrun by a group of corrupted Earthen known as the Skarden, and we're going to be just beginning to understand where they.
He's got demon horns. It looks like he's got Burning Legion demon horns, but they're void. I like that. Also, look at that texture on that hammer, right? Look at that texture. It's like a meat tenderizer, which would make sense that hammers wouldn't always be flat. Very vicious looking, very evil. Excellent work, art team.
Came from and what their nature is as we fight through it. But one cool thing about this dungeon is that it's actually part of the main campaign as you play through Isle of Dorn. Now, I know some people are instantly saying, wait a minute, I don't like doing dungeons, I just like solo questing, that's terrible. Well, fortunately, in 10.2.5, towards the end of Dragonflight, we introduced this feature called Follower Dungeons, and we're really happy.
I like that they're tying Follower Dungeons in and confirming that Follower Dungeons will be in the main, will be in the quest. Because here's the thing, let's say you're questing as a DPS, right? And you're at a point where you've done all the quests, and now it's time to actually get into the dungeon. You hit Q. Up. Now you gotta wait 20 minutes. Doesn't feel good. As a healer, I may not have to wait. As a tank, I may not have to wait. As a DPS, dun 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 dun. Da 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 dun 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 bum ba 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 ba. And even then, I still have, after a sarcastic song showing waiting, I still have to wait more because somebody decided not to click accept or something. So follower dungeons let you get in, get the quest done, get the content, and get to endgame. I like that. And you can still experience the story at your pace. If you want to wait, fine, go nuts. If you want to just get it done on normal, because again, follower dungeons are only on normal, go ahead.
To bring that to the level up dungeons in War Within right from the outset, so that you can go in solo with NPC allies as you play through the dungeon if that's what you prefer. Or of course you can just queue up with with friends or random group mates through the group finder. But what this lets us do is, where appropriate, we can really have the story flow directly through dungeons in a way that we couldn't in the past, in ways that at times was frankly awkward, because sometimes major villains die in dungeons.
Ner'zhul in Warlords of Draenor, the only warlord you kill in a dungeon. Everyone else you kill in a raid or helps you at the end. So, I mean, that's a big deal. To kill Ner'zhul in a dungeon? Ner'zhul, the original Lich King. Now, granted, in Draenor, he wasn't the Lich King, so it's a thing. But yeah, Ian is right. Sometimes major villains do die in dungeons.
Or places of great importance in a zone, but we couldn't really tie them directly into the questing because we didn't want to create an obstacle for players who really just prefer to keep playing solo.
Tina, is there anything that you like?
One of my favorites is in Hallowfall. So it's called the Priory of the Sacred Flame, and it's this Earthor monastery. So one of the coolest parts is the final boss room. There's this giant window that frames.
Oh, that's a lovely shot. Like that, the paladin in me is like, yes. Yes. Oh, that's such a good shot. Very cathedral-esque.
The crystal that is embedded in the ceiling of Hallowfall. And so I love, the beauty of the room, as well as just how it ties in with the narrative of the story as a whole. And another really cool one, it's the City of Threads. So this one is underneath the Nerubian city proper. And so it's really interesting to see the ancient civilization that the newer civilization was built on top of, and just to think about the layers of Nerubian history that.
Now, I wonder if that's a veiled reference to Chad Nesbit something. It's in Dungeons and Dragons in the Faerun campaign setting. There's a couple of different drow cities. One is Menzoberranzan. The other is Chad something. And it's this that's known as like city of webs. And so I'm wondering if that's kind of a veiled reference at some point, because I will say that the Nerubians definitely remind me of Driders. Now, that's obviously that's a coincidence. They weren't created by the same people, but who's to say how far creative influences bleed into and without each other?
Is in this land.
Is it that the ancient civilization back in like Lich King?
Even far before that.
It's even farther before that?
Yeah, the Nerubians, I think, we might think of them as monstrous or arachnid. They're one of the great powers, one of the great.
I mean, the Nerubians, they say they existed well before anyone came to Northrend in Wrath of the Lich King.
Advanced civilizations of Azeroth, right up there with the elves and trolls and the others that helped shape the course of the world's history. We've only really seen hints of them going back to Wrath. If you ran the Asdrul Nerub or Ankahet dungeons, you could see their buildings off in the background. But they were a civilization that at its height rivaled the High Elves and the Nightborn on the surface.
That's insane.
They were able to go toe-to-toe with the Lich King's armies and win until.
Which is a super big deal. That is a super big deal to be able to go. Because the Scourge, listen, as players, we might not really notice the Scourge all that much because we fought it and we won, but we're champions. Most of the people that encountered the Scourge, or most of the beings that encountered the Scourge, died. And not only died, became part of the Scourge. So it's almost like there's a literal survivorship bias, where it's like, oh yeah, the Scourge, yeah, it's fine, whatever. Or as what Bane says in the Shadowlands and the Maw, we fought infinite armies before. It's like, no, you don't understand. You guys are literally the outliers, and if we fall, the rest of us we're done. We're done.
Till the old gods and their forces on another flank eventually led to the Nerubians being overwhelmed. But really being able to explore what they're all about is one of the things we're most excited about when it comes to War Within.
One of the things we're excited to bring is an arachnophobia filter, if you will. For all of you out there who could never, go to that spider section in Nax, you'll be able to turn on an arachnophobia filter, and all spider beasts will turn into crabs. So very pumped.
That is an absolutely fantastic filter. I'm not afraid of spiders, but that is a level of accessibility that other game studios need to sit down and take notes on. That is such a good idea, because some people don't like spiders and it creeps them out. So, congratulations, boom, major spider area, now they're crabs, and everything works fine, and it's the same. And it's still somewhat vague shape, but it's different enough. Bravo, that is the best thing I've seen out of this so far.
About that.
Yeah, it actually looks, it works way better than you might think just hearing that sentence. I can't wait for players to be able to jump in, turn it on, and hopefully feel more comfortable in parts of our world. This is something that when we announced the Nerubian-centric themes of War Within at BlizzCon, we heard trepidation from portions of our community who love WoW, but were worried they weren't going to be able to experience it. Honestly, prior to that, it's something we heard concerns about from within our own team, where there are, people who genuinely felt uncomfortable with these elements of the game that we were building together. And so
The fact that the team brought this up and they decided to carry it forward, they listened to both internal and external opinions, is indicative of a healthy team. I like that. I know I've said it before, but I like that because that means that they're trying and they care. And it may just be for selfish reasons. Sure, you want to make a good product, you want to sell a lot of stuff, you want to make a lot of money. Fine. I'm not worried about that. The fact is that this is a company that has decided to go out of its way to create an accessibility model so more people can enjoy the game. Perfectly fine. In fact, laudable.
we set out to try to find a solution that would still, preserve the fidelity of the game, but really make it more approachable, more accessible to everyone.
So speaking of the Nerubians, once we reach level 80, we're going to go to the new raid, Nerbo Palace. Is there anything you want to speak about that?
Ooh.
Yeah, this raid is epic in
Look at that. Look at
so
that.
many ways.
There we go. All right, look at that. I like it. It's very foreboding entrance. Excellent architecture, excellent art again.
One of the coolest parts is there's this beautiful showpiece that is just in front of the Queen's palace. It represents the Nerubian race, and it just shows how highly Queen Ensrek thinks of her people and herself. This raid, you'll get, one of the sections of the raid, you'll get to check out her innermost sanctum. This is where, only VIPs for the Nerubians get to go, and you really get to explore the dark elegance of her palace.
I think, again, as we were just saying, like the Nerubians, we need to remember they're an advanced race.
I like that they keep hammering that this is not just some monstrous raid where you're going to go in and be like, oh, slay the monsters. Like, these are beings that have agency. It's not like, Gruul being like, oh, I want to smash and eat and create more kids. It's just, this is it's like if we were to go raid Stormwind or Ironforge or Ogrimmar again.
Just this epic civilization. I think there's some parallels probably to going back to the Nightborn in Suramar and what going into that city and that palace felt like. We really want to show the sophistication here. This is not a monstrous supervillain lair. This is, a superpower of Azeroth that we find ourselves, facing off against. But yeah, the Queen Ensrek encounter that Tina mentioned, she's going to be the end boss of sort of the initial season, the initial raid tier. The encounter team is hard at work on this one. I can't wait to see it tested later on in beta. This is, the whole room is really purpose-built to showcase some vertical elements, and it's just an incredible set piece.
When they say incredible set piece, they're not kidding. They are not kidding with that. And that is a unique model of Nerubian. I've not seen a Nerubian look like that, where there's a distinctive, almost, human-esque face with, I guess, carapace that almost looks like horns or a hairstyle. And if this is the raid encounter room, ooh, that'll be interesting. You could have a council boss or some type of other thing. Oh, it'd be fantastic.
But we want to, as always, integrate the environment wherever possible into our encounters, so you're facing off against both, a very powerful magical user, but also someone who is arachnid in nature. And how do we kind of deliver parts of the fantasy of, scaling a web while locked in combat against the Queen? Those are the things that we're currently exploring. Can't wait to see that up for testing.
Does that mean we're going to get tier sets again?
Certainly. I think
Yes. Good. Do not get rid of tier sets again. Tier sets are great. Even if you think tier sets are boring, players like tier sets. When you take things away from the players, they are not happy. Just give them the tier sets. More importantly, just have it if you've got to be boring with it, and I don't think they will be, but if you've got to be boring with it, do the 25 and 50% rule, or the 20-40 rule. Where the two set bonus does 25% to something, 4 set bonus does 50% to something. Or 20% damage on your 2 set, 40% damage on your 4 set. And it can be an ability, it can be an interaction, it can be a reset, it can be a proc per minute thing. It's fine. Just do that, because that way people feel this sense of progression and they're rewarded for it. I was very happy when they brought tier sets back, and I'm glad that they're continuing with tier sets.
Last time we tried taking them away, I recall torches and pitchforks in the street. New tier means new tier sets. And these days, unlike years and years ago when you had to raid in order to get the tier set, now you can get them from a wide array of activities, whether you're a raider, Mythic Plus player, or an Outdoor World player, which includes now delves.
Ah, delves. Let's start talking about delves.
Yeah, delves are one of the major new features in War Within, and I think we're really excited to offer a more structured, progression-oriented extension of the Outdoor World gameplay.
So I want to talk about Outdoor World gameplay because generally what will happen is you'll get to the area, you'll go through the quests, you'll level up, you'll do world quests, you'll get some rewards, and then after the first raid tier, basically, it's kind of out-leveled content until you get to the new zone, and then you'll do that, and so on and so forth. The fact that they're expanding on Outdoor World content means that things will be viable for a while. You can continue to build things, you can continue to work, and you can continue to gain rewards outside of just wanting to make number go higher. So I like that.
We know is the favorite of so many of our players. And delves are these seamless experiences integrated into all of our zones, where you can have these localized, varied adventures alongside in the first season, Bran Bronzebeard, either on your own or with friends. And finally, get a shot at some endgame epic rewards just through an extension of the Outdoor World ecosystem.
Yeah, we'll be able to get it from the Great Vault, right?
Exactly.
Yeah, super exciting. So one of our goals with building delves was we really wanted the player to just feel like they adventured, came across a place, and could just, go in and see what's inside. When you walk up to the delve, there's this, dark, misty door, and you click on it, and then it just disappears, and you just walk into your own personal delve instance. So very excited about that.
Also, as a Dark Souls player, seeing a misty door in front of me does fill me with a little bit of trepidation. So excellent work there, friends. You have triggered something that I did not know was in me until I saw Misty Door. I'm like, ugh, because I just beat Dark Souls 3 the other day, and I'm thinking about that Misty Door, this is gonna be a problem. So I don't know if that's intentional or not, but the fact that it's your own, it's a very easy, hopefully low loading screen time. Hey, this is your instance. Fantastic.
Players are going to have that first experience on the Isle of Dorn early in the alpha. The first delve they're likely to encounter is Earthcrawl Mines. You're going to encounter your good friend Bran Bronzebeard outside an ancient earthen mine that has been overrun with Nerubians who are burrowing up from the depths. Bran will ask you if you want him to outfit himself as a healer or as a damage dealer to help support you. And you'll venture in and have your very first delve experience. You'll be able to choose whether you want to do it on Tier 1 or Tier 2 difficulty. Tier 1 is kind of the default. This is for everyone experience. Tier 2 is for those who want to opt into a bit more of a challenge because
more player choice, more player options, always great. And if you can make it infinitely scalable at endgame, that could be an interesting form of solo progression. Which will lead to self-sustain, probably needing to be nerfed a little bit in delves. But outside of that seems like it could be a really cool idea.
That's what they enjoy. There will be higher tiers that can be unlocked at max level as part of the end game and seasonal progression. And we really just can't wait to get player feedback from the outset, really all through alpha, on this new system, on how it is or isn't working for you, and whether we can really meet everyone's expectations, from people who just want a casual romp as an extension of their Outdoor World experience to those who want a solo progression challenge that they can really strive to overcome.
So one thing the delves strike me as, and we're going to call it the Torghast problem. Torghast is not a bad idea. The problem with Torghast is that in order to get your legendary item that you needed in order to raid effectively and not be a detriment to your group, you had to do it at the highest level possible, as early as possible, as often as possible, up until Zareth Mordris, in which you could get the Cosmic Flux, and then you could go from there. So, if you don't tie significant player power to completion of delves, or mandatory items, and some people say, but Nim, it's never mandatory to get an item. Okay, sure. It's not mandatory. No one's actually putting a gun to your head, but you're not getting on a raid team. A serious raid team. without being, maybe later you'll get carried, but you're not progging without decent gear. So that's that. So I hope we avoid the Torghast problem, because Torghast, once I didn't have to run it every week, was fine. It was fine. But when I had to run it every week, it was an absolute chore. I was like, oh, I gotta sit through, and I gotta literally click up the affixes in order to get the maximum amount of soul ash, so that in a week I can pick up the actual thing. Or I need to make sure that Cold Heart Interstitia is open so I can get Shock Barrier this week, because if I don't run it and get Shock Barrier, then I'm out a legendary for the next 4 weeks.
Feedback is going to really help shape how this evolves, but we're so excited about Delves as a central part of War Within.
Yeah, I'm excited that we're going to be able to just jump in and go solo with Bran, or you can have friends, but also just get rewards in that way, especially the tier sets with the Catalyst.
Exactly.
And then that really cool mechanical mount.
Yeah, so this is going to kind of be an introduction to the, sort of the Delves endgame. As you hit max level, as you hit 80, and start to get a sense of the Delves ecosystem, right at the start of that, we're going to give you this epic customizable mount, kind of the
That is a wonderful mount model, and I am here for it. The fact that you're starting, again, Josh Strife Hayes talked about the game gets good 100 hours in, and the question was, why can't you make it good earlier? Why can't you make it enjoyable earlier? If you give players a good reward or something that they can build on early, they're more likely to stay, especially when you don't penalize them for not being able to log in. Because, again, the reason why I didn't make a whole lot of YouTube videos this past few months is because I was in a 6-hour Spanish class that took all of my time outside of work to really get done. And then towards the end, I was able to, I could squeeze in a little gym time, and now I'm starting to feel a little better. But you have to understand is that you give rewards and you don't give penalties, and players are probably going to be happy with you.
successor to the customizable drakes you had in Dragon Isles, where you'll be able to, through doing delves, earn a variety of different customizations.
I love that. I love all of those. They're all wonderful.
And attachments that you can mix and match to really create your own personalized flying mount.
So does this mechanical mount have dynamic flying?
This is one of the big questions we had moving on from Dragonflight. We had the question of like, well, okay, dragon riding is amazing. We can't get rid of this, but how is this going to work alongside of the hundreds of mounts that we already have in players' collections? And how, from a design perspective, how do we navigate a world where some mounts can fly in this awesome way and others can only do the old quote-unquote static flight? Fortunately, I think our art team was able to work out an amazing solution for us.
Yeah, we were very.
That is a fire bee. I just want to address that is a fire bee. Cool mount. Cool mount. Like again, the art team killing it. The design team killing it. Now, if the narrative team can bring the heat too, we're going to be in a great spot.
Very excited to be able to make pretty much all mounts be able to dynamically fly. So even Nimron's head, Ian, we figured it out. We made it work. So
I'm really excited to see Nimron's head.
God, I would love to have a Memoron's head, but I like that when you do the soar, it opens up and smiles all happy, because I've never gotten Memoron's head. That seems like a problem. Never gotten it. Used to farm it a lot. Don't do it so much anymore because I got tired of being disappointed. That's why I have my Great Vault every week for weekly disappointment. Sad.
Going like super fast. Another feature coming in the War Within that I'm really excited about, as well as a lot of other people, is warbands.
Yeah, warbands, I mean, again, I think as I summarized it at BlizzCon, it's just account-wide everything, almost everything. Players increasingly play multiple characters, and this is something we've heard loud and clear, that the game needs to be more alt-friendly, that players want to be able to choose where they spend their time across their different characters instead of feeling like they have to reprogress everything into.
I love that. I love the idea of not having to reprogress everything. The reason I only have so much time, right? Like, I'm a YouTuber, a streamer, and I work, and I live by myself. I'm basically, no life. I can no life this if I really want to outside of work. And I don't want to re-clear quest content. And not because the quests weren't fun. Yeah, okay, whatever. I collect 6, kill 12, and interact with, 8. Whatever, that's fine. It doesn't bother me. It fills the bar. And I enjoy the story, and I enjoy talking to characters, and I enjoy hanging out with my friends, but I don't want to redo the content if I don't have to. And warbands allowing us to not have to redo content means that I don't have to start behind the 8-ball. I like that. Good on you. I'm sorry it took so long to get there, but that's a great thing.
Individually. And so, yeah, the warband is just, it is your account in its entirety. It is your collection of champions, whether they're Horde or Alliance, regardless of what realm they're on. They're all part of the same warband, which gives access to various shared progression systems.
And then you get to see all of your favorites on, one screen together. So in our new UI, we'll have warbands, and you'll be able to move 4 up into that space and see them all hanging out around a campfire.
Is that on the character select screen?
Yeah, the character select screen.
Oh, cool.
Yeah.
That's going to be totally different than what we're used to logging in.
I really like the new login screen. Hopefully we can gain more things to customize that from just a camp, because that would be really cool. And a very easy, slam dunk type of earnable in-game. I hope Blizzard's listening to that.
Exactly, yes. You'll know, this is a completely different world. It's a completely different welcome into World of Warcraft. What we showed off at BlizzCon was just actually a UI mock-up, but we're excited to see people react to the real thing. And really, as with everything else, warbands are a foundation. This is a system that we want to build the next generations of World of Warcraft on. In 2004, WoW launched with everything character-based. In 2024, WoW is going to shift to everything being account-based.
Imagine 20 years, right? 20 years of gameplay. I've played for most of those 20 years, and I've played off and on, and it is fantastic. I remember being in high school hearing about World of Warcraft, right? I remember being like, Paladin and Holy Shock and blah, blah. I've gone through the story before. I won't go through it again. But it's amazing that the 10th expansion, 20-year anniversary, is probably going to be something big this year, because I did a video, and you can find on the channel, I think we'll put it up in the cards here, that about the history of the anniversary events. And after 5 years, they were like, okay, every 5 years we're going to do something big. So the 5-year, the 10-year, the 15-year, and now the 20-year. So I'm looking forward to seeing what happens for a 20th anniversary.
And we can't wait to hear feedback about what other areas we can expand upon here. And that's going to shape not just War Within, but later updates and expansions. And we're just excited about this platform that better reflects the way our players are looking to play World of Warcraft today.
You can't forget about PvP. Let's talk about it.
You absolutely can forget about PvP. My good friend Kuma tells me that you forget about PvP all the time. I do hope that they add a lot of PvP stuff for those who like PvP. I do not. I'm not a fan of it, but I want the PvP community to have fun and enjoy their maps and have balances, because ultimately I get 8 new dungeons, an expansion, right? They might get 1 new battleground every 2 expansions. So I think they should eat good for at least once.
Yeah, so we have a new battleground called the Deep Hall. This one is earthen themed. It's a bit of a mashup between Silver Shard Mines and Arathi Basin. So, hold some points, push some carts. We're really excited to see how players navigate around this one.
Yeah. Okay, so that seems like a nice big battleground. Could be a lot of fun, because when I saw the tracks, I was like, oh, that reminds me of Silver Shard Mines. I remember Silver Shard Mines because I had to do it for the quest for the cloak back in Mists of Pandaria. And, of course, I did Arathi Basin every now and again when I was younger.
Yeah, and in terms of how players are interacting with it, there is an overhaul to our rated battleground system that is coming with War Within. People who've been paying attention over the course of Dragonflight have checked out our Battleground Blitz, our kind of brawl that was testing out a 8v8 solo queue rated battleground format. We're happy to move to that as a default for how...
That sounds like a good plan. Being able to solo queue, because oftentimes you run into that thing where if you have a team, like, hey guys, we want to get in here and do this, and, well, my kid's mad, or I got to put my kid to bed, or I got to go do this, or I have to stay late at work, or, whatever. And being able to solo queue and still have a ranked mode that you can earn rewards from is fantastic. Good on you. I hope the PvPers are very happy with that.
Rated battlegrounds are going to work going forward. I think we're really excited to make that battleground experience that personally I've always felt is the best part of WoW PvP, the larger scale, more cooperative, objective-based, collaborative, competitive setting, as opposed to the deathmatch style in Arena, to make that more accessible to everyone who loves battlegrounds, loves PvP. We know it's a bit overdue, honestly.
Yeah. Yeah, it is a bit overdue. But the fact that they're trying to make it easy to enter and hard to master is laudable. I applaud them for that because that way more people can play. I'm not much of a PvP guy. Even if you dangle a lot of rewards from, it's got to be a pretty big reward for me competing, not winning. So this is not for me, but I want the PvPers to actually have something because they subsist on scraps.
Us adding a new Battleground map into the rotation, and we're excited to do more of this going forward. We're excited to have a new framework that can make Battlegrounds more central to the end game rewarding part of PvP. And yeah, this is just the beginning of a new chapter.
Another feature in the War Within is hero talents. We've been having a lot of articles talking about them. What are some of the other things that we can expect with the hero talents coming forward?
Well, I can say there's going to be no more blogs and articles releasing hero talents because they'll be there for you to jump in and play. And I think that's the most exciting thing. We're so grateful to the community for all of the feedback and discussion in recent months, going back to the first blog in December.
I'm glad that they're grateful for the community. I hope that they implement the changes that the community brought up because some of them seemed a little concerning. I don't have any memory off the top of my head, but a lot of it, I remember there was one with the I think it was the Blood DK. The Sand Lane had a problem with some type of interaction that I had retweeted that seemed, and maybe it was the description not being exactly clear, but I want the hero talents to be rewarding, right? And I get it. There's a route and then a capstone, and then you have things in between. And I think you can get actually all of them outside of the choice nodes where you can only choose one per. But the fact of the matter is that us being able to get these nice little, let's say flavor and utility talents are going to be great as long as, and they did say this, as long as you do not have to go through like a 2-week cooldown like you did with Covenants, everything's going to be fine because then you can do a balancing patch and it's okay. Or like in Legion with Outlaw Rogue where they reworked the daggers and people were like, oh, you said you weren't going to rework stuff and now my daggers are terrible. Or my Outlaw Rogue weapons are terrible.
Really helped us shape this central feature of how people's class gameplay is going to evolve. You're going to see hero talents that you haven't yet seen for the trees that we haven't discussed previously. And for many of the ones that we have released, you'll log in and see changes that are directly shaped by your feedback, by what we heard loud and clear in some cases about what was and wasn't exciting. We've committed to have as many of these playable right from the outset as possible. We will have 100% of the hero talent trees available and playable not long into alpha. And then the rest.
Yes, Templar, Light's Guidance, Wake of Ashes. Let's go. Like that's where I'm at, the Paladin. Oh, let's go.
Rest of the journey is going to be about iteration, tuning, and really just dialing it all in to make the polished experience that everyone is excited about.
So what are we doing with professions in the War Within?
I think when we really overhauled professions in Dragonflight, we saw that as a kind of a permanent shift in how professions were going to work going forward. So you can expect, new recipes, different enchants, but the same fundamental sort of progression and structure to professions that you saw in Dragonflight.
For my buddy Strick, I just want to bring up one point. You should definitely make it to where if you're going to make rank 3 gems and you're a maxed out jewel crafter, you shouldn't have to use an illustrious insight or the equivalent. You should just be able to make the rank 3 gem. Or give me the ability to trade illustrious insight or whatever the equivalent's going to be. Because I'll be honest with you, I have like 1,500 artisans metal on one of my characters, and I'm never going to do anything with it because I don't really craft on him. So yeah, that's a thing. And the trading for knowledge to artisan metal was a little low for what you would get. So that's for my buddy Strick. Please fix that because he is a maxed out jewel crafter and has the best gear and cannot guarantee a 3-star or cannot guarantee the highest level gem without an illustrious insight. I don't do much crafting in this expansion, so I don't know exactly all of the terminology with that, but it's fine.
One big piece of feedback that we heard throughout Dragonflight, though, was a bit of frustration with the work order system from crafters who were just looking to...
Also, bring back profession perks, please. The reason why I'm an alchemist is because of the fact that my files last longer, right? Bring back profession perks. Let blacksmiths sock it again. Give miners, a stam buff. Skinners a crit buff. Herbalists a bit of a heal. Bring that stuff back. Because that was really cool. And it was really nice to be able to have some extra, granted it wasn't game breaking, but an extra 1% crit chance? Sure, that's fine. Extra, I don't know, 1% stamina for mining? Sure. It made filling the bar important to finishing the character.
To complete quests, looking to skill up, but found themselves competing and often racing to grab work orders with their fellow crafters. So what we're excited to offer is a baseline availability of basically NPC crafting orders. So that could be Earthen in Isle of Dorn who need.
Okay, so you're turning crafting orders into crafting quests, which I think is a good thing, because as long as you can still rank up from playing or make money from other players as having a crafting expertise, that's fine. But while you're leveling, instead of having to compete and sit on the crafting order thing and just be like, that's my gameplay, as I have to click and refresh and hopefully get something and then hopefully have tips and hopefully have things, you can kind of guarantee a certain amount of profitability. And what I'd like to see is that the crafting NPC quests actually reward a fair bit of currency so that people do them. Because at a certain point, once you're done leveling, well, what's the point? I don't need any more points. I can't get anything. But if you make it to where they're actually rewarding, people will keep doing them.
A hammer made or need a helmet made, and they're constantly putting their work orders up onto the market, so that there's always something for you to grab. The player ones will still be more lucrative, but there should always be that baseline availability if you just want to skill up, you just want to practice your trade skill. And there's also some cool potential for narrative tie-ins, the ability to have quests that now can point you towards that system, because we can count on it always being there.
So with Dragonflight and the Profession overhaul, there was also a UI overhaul. Is there anything we're going to see with The War Within?
Yeah, so the UI overhaul, it's basically a continued improvements that we want to make over time. One of the things that I'm very excited about is the quest bang overhaul. So we're going to have a bunch of new icons that will make what type of quest it is much more clear.
I like that. I like that a lot. Now, being a longtime player, I know what those icons mean normally, but let's take a look at this daily quest, for example, right? That's a cool idea. It shows that it's repeatable, or this is a repeatable quest, right? Repeatable daily. So I think that's cool. And then, of course, the big shiny, pennant style quest for, that's your MSQ, your main story quest type stuff. I like that. I'm with it. Way to go.
The new ones that you'll see is one that's we consider an important one. These aren't campaign, but they're pretty important to your character. For instance, some that must-do ones for your profession, or ones where you're gonna unlock the revival catalyst.
Yeah, I think as we've leaned more and more into outdoor world gameplay and varied gameplay there, different types of public events over the course of Dragonflight, honestly, we reached a point about halfway through Dragonflight where we just took a look at our map and kind of recoiled in horror at the number of different icons that were there. And it was just a kind of icon soup situation that made us say,
that is a thing that is a problem, because I'll log in on an older character and I'll be like, oh, there's so much for me to do. I've got this one and this one and this one, this one, this one, this one, this one, this one. And I've done them before, either on, my hunter or my paladin or my mage or whatever. And the fact that they're trying to kind of make that account bound is a very good idea. And cleaning up the UI is always nice. I like the UI overhaul they did in Dragonflight. Generally, if something is a mod, it should be incorporated into base UI, right? LVUI does a lot of useful little features. Buddy Strict does dominoes. I've never used dominoes, so I don't really know about that, other than the fact that he uses it. And I think that most stuff that could be that was used for add-ons should be incorporated in the base UI. Now, there's always going to be different things, like weak auras is a whole nother thing entirely, and they kind of have to do ad hoc fixes for that. But ultimately, the UI overhaul and continued improvement is a good thing.
It's kind of at this point, we've advanced far past the world of, oh, you just have some daily quests or world quests here. We need a clearer visual language. And so really excited to just evolve that central interface that players use to log in and see what there is to do in WoW on a given day.
So that covers The War Within, and the alpha is starting extremely soon.
Pretty much working on getting it stood up as we speak. As I'm
recording this, the alpha has actually been out for a little while. I know I'm a little late to the party, but I wanted to share that I do not have alpha access. If that changes, believe me, you will know because there'll be videos about it. If you made it this far, thank you for watching. I hope you enjoyed the video, and keep in mind, I'm always open to comments, suggestions, and everything down below. So let me know if there's something you want to see specifically. Outside of that, may the mount that you're farming drop on the first kill, and have a good day. I'll see you in the next video. Take care.